Nintendo just recently came out with a whole bunch of Wii U news, and among all the hoopla were some new trailers and gameplay footage of New Super Mario Bros. U. And not only that, but we actually got to play it. So I figured we should take another look at everything Nintendo's shown off to see what new details we can find. But before we start, make sure to check out our previous analysis videos if you haven't already, since we'll be building upon them. Okay, so obviously the scene you're watching now is the game's opening, and it seems to be continuing the series' trend of creating a more fun and energetic presentation with each installment. We wouldn't be surprised if the same standard is applied throughout the rest of the game, such as with boss encounters and of course the ending. Speaking of bosses, the opening confirms that Bowser is indeed back, at least if the giant figurehead on the ship is any indication. And it looks like each of the Koopalings have a similar ship of their own. And in a throwback to Mario 3, it seems the airships also double as the arena for each of the Koopaling battles. But hold up a second, in our last analysis we talked about how Koopalings served as a boss for each area's castle, so how are you fighting them on an airship? We actually got a chance to see for ourselves while playing it at Nintendo's Wii U event. It seems that at the end of each castle, a cannon will blast you to the airship where the actual boss battle takes place. In this case, the battle happens inside, which is in stark contrast to Roy's outside battle. Now, although Wendy Koopa retains her ring attack from Super Mario Bros. 3, she's apparently learned how to ice skate in the intervening years. So with these two battles, it does seem that there may be a greater variety between Koopaling fights than in past games. But there is one member of the Koopa clan that seems to be missing. Where is Bowser Jr.? Although there's no sign of him in the gameplay at all, Nintendo did release some official artwork confirming he is in fact in the game. And it seems his clown car has been outfitted with a pair of arms and boxing gloves, which will no doubt factor into his boss fight. And it makes us wonder if Bowser's similarly robotic claw will play a part in his battle as well. Now, thanks to the latest issue of Game Informer, we already know that the fortresses are guarded by Boom Booms and the castles by the Koopalings, as we've mentioned before. So how does Bowser Jr. fit into all this? As you might remember, in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Bowser Jr. would occasionally make an appearance in his airship after defeating a castle's Koopaling, so perhaps it's something similar here. Though if it is, we suspect it will involve an airship of his own this time, since we haven't seen any sign of his yet. Plus having two airships back to back would be a little odd. Anyway, let's take a look at that opening sequence again. After Bowser grabs the Mario crew, he decides to throw them far, really far, away. We can even see just how far a few seconds later in the trailer where Peach's castle is just barely visible in the distance. One of our viewers, Sakuel64, suggests that unlike every other New Super Mario Bros. Game where you start at Peach's castle, you might actually end there this time. Wouldn't that be a twist if you actually fought Bowser at Peach's own castle? It actually would explain the addition of this tower, which has never been seen before on Peach's castle in any of the previous games. For comparison, here's how it looked in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Perhaps that tower was added because that's where the final battle takes place, similar to Super Mario World's rooftop battle. Or maybe this is where you'll fight Bowser Jr., since he is using a clown copter after all, and it even looks like he'll throw things at you too, just like his daddy in Mario World. Now the Japanese Nintendo Direct actually gave us an even better look at the castle, and we can clearly see that Peach has had an upper walkway and two new doors installed. We very much doubt Nintendo would add these details if they weren't going to come into play later. So regardless of the exact details, we're pretty sure the castle is going to play a major role at some point. The game's opening sequence also gives us a better idea of the geography of the world in New Super Mario Bros. U. So thanks to our playtime with the game at E3, we already know that you start the first level just in front of the giant tree that you landed in, and you end it with a view of Peach's castle in the far distance. Now let's take a look at the world map. Since we now know that the castle is behind and to the right of the giant tree, which you can see right there, that means Peach's castle is probably to the northeast. And it's apparently pretty far, since the latest footage of the world map reveals at least a few of the worlds before then. The first area, Acorn Plains, leads to Layer Cake Desert to the north, and that's followed by what appears to be Frosty Glacier to the northeast. Which, by the way, it looks like Wendy is the boss of based on where her battle takes place. Unfortunately, that's all the footage of the world map we have. But so far, the structure very closely resembles New Super Mario Bros. Wii, where the first three worlds are grassy plains, desert, and snowy mountains. And because we know the themes of at least most of the worlds in New Super Mario Bros. U, we can guess what the next few might be if they follow the same pattern. So, going by New Super Mario Bros. Wii, the fourth world might be tropical, which is sparkling waters here. The fifth might be the forest world. Then we have to skip ahead to the seventh world, which might be the sky one. And that leaves only the tornado world left, at least of the ones we know, which could be either world 6 or 8, since it doesn't fit any of the themes in previous Mario games. Of course, it's entirely possible Nintendo could switch things up on us. And keep in mind that it's likely that you'll be able to visit the worlds in varying orders, just like in Mario World. Alright, that's all that we can make of the main geographical areas for now, but the world map does reveal a few new details. For one, we can see that the world map enemies from previous New Super Mario Bros. Games return, such as Piranha Plants, Goombas, Fire Brothers, and Penguins. And like those games, you'll probably enter a battle stage if you touch one. But let's take another look at that desert scene again with the Goomba and Fire Brother. Do you see something else there? Yup, that's a Super Acorn Power-Up, the same one that turns you into a flying squirrel. And if I play the video in slow motion, you can actually see it rolls around too. This is the first time a power-up has ever appeared on the world map itself. But we don't know what happens if you actually touch it. Perhaps you'll gain that power right away, or maybe you'll have to complete a special stage first. But we're guessing that's not the only one you'll see, considering how many super acorns are flung from the acorn tree in the opening scene. Going back to the desert scene, we also get our first look at the reappearance of Boom Boom, who looks out from atop his fortress. Now let's take a look at the final map clip. If we pause it at the very start, you can see there's a signpost at the junction. We're guessing you'll actually be able to read it too, considering its proximity to the path. Maybe it points out where the two branching paths lead. Perhaps they even lead to alternate worlds. Now just a little later in the clip, we can see something else near the path. A little blue baby Yoshi. But we really have no idea what he might be for. Maybe you can take him to any level you want, even levels that don't normally feature Yoshis? Or maybe you need to find the baby Yoshis on the world map first before you can use them in the levels. Sort of like the Switch Palaces in Super Mario World that make specific blocks available in other levels. But we're really just guessing. And he's not alone, as there's a red one near the mushrooms in Acorn Plains. Oh, and of course, the warp pipes are back too. Finally, before we wrap up with a map, let's compare the new footage at Acorn Plains to the original footage released just before E3. You might notice that the visuals are far more detailed now, such as with the acorns on the tree. So either they got a major upgrade recently, or maybe the map is simplified when viewing me versus messages from other players. Now take a look at the large red mushroom on the right. The older footage shows a bridge that connects it to a toad house on the other side, but both of these are missing in the newer footage, as is one of the nearby warp pipes. So either that area totally transforms at some point, or more likely the area received an overhaul. Okay, that's enough with the map, let's look at the new gameplay itself. And it finally delivers our first actual footage of the adult green Yoshi. And we can see he still has his trademark flutter jump too. Speaking of things that are back, we can see even more returning enemies are here as well, such as Bonefins and Spike. And then there are Thwimps and Bony Beetles, both of which haven't been seen in a main Mario platformer since Super Mario World. Moving on, we get our first actual footage of the returning Flower Powerup, as well as getting visual confirmation that Mini Mario can now run up walls. But that's enough about the returning stuff, let's talk about something new, like Boost Mode here. Now we've already talked about how a player using the gamepad can create platforms by tapping on the touchscreen that the other players can use. But what we didn't know until now is that each time the other players successfully use a created platform, it'll fill the meter at the top of the gamepad screen. And if that meter fills completely, it'll activate a souped up boost mode, allowing the gamepad player to take out entire enemies such as this Thwomp here simply by tapping on them. It should help promote teamwork and good platform placement. Alright, we're nearly done here, but there's still a few last things I want to touch on. So in our last analysis, we're taking a look at this beanstalk and wondered what it could be for. But now we have a little more footage that confirms it functions as a normal level, but we still think completing it might be the path to the Sky World, or at least some secret area. Now we also notice that the squirrel enemies will sometimes carry the Super Acorn Power-up, and you can actually snatch it from them if you're quick enough. It's actually pretty similar to the Cape Koopas in Mario World, where the flashing ones would give up a feather, turning Mario into Cape Mario. The squirrel enemies also seem to be far more maneuverable and dynamic than most Mario enemies, taking flight and landing on all kinds of surfaces. It's pretty cool. And New Super Mario Bros. U really seems to be all about the details, much more so than previous games in the series. Check out Wendy's airship for example, and how it's decked out in golden rings and ice skates, just as she is. And there's one final detail that Gatling Growing 57 pointed out that I think is really neat. In previous Mario games, the soundtrack would change slightly when riding Yoshi, and it seems New Super Mario Bros. U has done just that for when you're carrying a baby Yoshi as well, and add some humming to the music. I'm going to turn it up for a second so you can hear what I mean. It can be a little hard to hear though since the audio is directly from the show floor. Did you hear that? But that's not the neat thing. Instead, watch the baby Yoshi carefully when he's not inflated. He's actually the one humming to the music. Here it is one more time. And that wraps up everything we could uncover from the latest footage for New Super Mario Bros. U. As always, let us know if you missed anything by posting in the comments. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more on New Super Mario Bros. U and other things gaming too.